This video will serve you as a guide how to get the maximum privacy and performance out of your Windows computer. If you are interested in either one, watch the video until the end and I will show you exactly how it works. I will try my best to make this video as beginner friendly as possible. To follow this guide you need two USB drives. The first USB drive will be used to install Windows. The second USB drive will be the storage for all our configuration files. Note that we will not create a Microsoft account, but instead a local administrator account that gives us much more control over Windows. We will also not be using Windows Update, but instead completely deactivate it, because if we use Windows Update, Microsoft will install all kinds of third-party bloatware and spyware on your Windows computer, collect your personal information and at the same time slow down your device. If at any point I'm explaining things too fast, use YouTube settings to slow down the video. In this guide I will be using Windows 10, because Windows 11, well, honestly speaking, is the most spyware Microsoft has ever created. It is time that we take control over our computers instead of letting our computers control us. For all the gamers watching this, yes, this system will be fully compatible for gaming, and your performance will definitely be better than a standard Windows installation.
Oh, was ist passiert?
Start by creating a bootable USB drive from which we will then install Windows. To do that we need to download the latest Windows ISO file from Microsoft's official website. The link is in the video description. On the website you will notice that there is no option to download an ISO file. Instead, Microsoft wants you to download their media creation tool. Stop, don't do that. What we want is the ISO file, and there's an easy way to get it. In your browser, open the extensions menu and search for UserAgent. Install the UserAgentSwitcher extension. Now open the UserAgent menu and change from Windows to Linux. Once done, select the first option and click the green button that says Apply Container. Now use the Refresh tab option. After the page has reloaded, we can now directly download the Windows ISO file. To create a bootable USB drive with the Windows ISO file we just downloaded, we need a tool called Rufus. In Rufus, use the drop-down menu to select your USB drive. For the second option, choose Disk or ISO image. Then click on Select and choose the ISO file you just downloaded. Leave the other settings as they are and click on Start to create your bootable USB drive from which we will install Windows in a moment. This may take around 5 minutes. Once the process has finished, the content of your USB drive should look like this. Now the next step is very important. Make sure to disconnect your computer from the internet completely. Unplug your Ethernet cable. If you are using a laptop, make sure there is absolutely no Wi-Fi connection available, because we are now going to install Windows offline. At this point, you should have a backup for all your important data. Connect your bootable USB drive to the main board of your computer. Once plugged in, start your PC and keep pressing either the F2 or the F12 button, depending on your mainboard manufacturer. Your computer should now boot into the BIOS mode. Once in the BIOS, find a setting called Boot Option and make sure that your bootable USB drive is at the top of the list. Meaning your PC will now start from the bootable USB drive instead of booting your operating system. If you cannot see any bootable USB drive in the BIOS, this means you plugged the USB drive in the wrong slot. Restart your computer and you should now see this screen, meaning you successfully booted from your USB drive. Select your language, time zone, keyboard layout and click Next. When you see this Windows activation screen, don't panic. You don't need an activation key for the Windows Home and Pro Edition. Even if you already have an activation key, don't use it. Because if you do, you get nothing, but you are potentially leaking your real identity to Microsoft, which is totally unnecessary. Choose the option I don't have a product key. On the next screen, select Windows 10 Pro. Select Custom Install. Now select your current Windows drive and click the Format Data option. This is important for a clean installation that has no trace of the previous operating system. On the next screen, Windows will ask you for a network connection. Choose the option I don't have internet. Select Continue with Limited Setup. Now Windows will reboot and ask the same questions again, and we are going to give it the same responses. I don't have internet. Continue with Limited Setup. When you are asked to enter a username, you should never, under no circumstances, use your real name. Enter a generic name that tells nothing about your real identity. Now Windows will ask for your permissions to spy on you and collect your personal information. Location access for Microsoft and apps? No. Find my device? No. Send data to Microsoft? No. Spy on my keyboard input? No. Microsoft experience? No. Adversing ID? No. Now the first thing you want to do after logging into Windows, open the Task Manager and stop the OneDrive setup process that uses 100% of your CPU. Now connect your second USB drive with all configuration files and drivers to your computer. Everything you need is linked in the video description below. The first file we will use is the one that I wrote by myself called Windows Service Control. I'm now going to use the option to disable all unnecessary services. However, you might have different preferences when it comes to services, so let me suggest what everyone should definitely disable, and that is unnecessary services and tasks, as well as Windows Update and Store services and tasks. For the changes to take effect, it is necessary to reboot the PC. Now, after the reboot, it is clear that there are way less services active than before. But there is still some bloatware running in the Task Manager, such as Feeds, Microsoft Edge, Text Input Application and Smart Screen. We will take care of those in a moment. But before we do that, let's create a few desktop shortcuts. Right-click on the desktop and select New Shortcut. Enter Explorer.exe, which stands for Windows Explorer. TaskMGR.exe stands for Task Manager. Control.exe is the Windows control panel. The next file we will be using is called Privacy and Performance Script, which is based on privacy.exe. However, it is optimized so it doesn't break any functionality and includes a few additional lines of code. This file is extremely important for both privacy and performance. Make sure to run this as administrator. It might take around 10 minutes until the script completely removed all traces of Windows bloatware and spyware from the operating system. Once you see this text, press any key to continue. That indicates that the script has finished. We will now get rid of the additional bloatware that is still visible in the Task Manager. For that we will use the delete bloatware file. However, our administrator account does not have permissions to remove some of the bloatware. That's why we need to use NSudo, which is a powerful system administrator tool with advanced permissions. In NSudo, activate Enable All Privileges, then click on Browse. Navigate to where you have the delete bloatware file located. Select it and click Run. This should only take a moment. Once again, when you see the text press any key to continue, this means that the script is done. Taking another look at the Task Manager, the remaining bloatware is now gone. Next, we will disable Windows Update in the Task Scheduler. However, once again, our administrator account does not have permissions for doing that. In NSudo, write exactly what I write and click Run. Once the Task Scheduler started, click the small gray arrow to extend the menu. Scroll down and click on the Update Orchestrator. Now right-click on each individual trigger and change it to Disabled. Also make sure that all triggers for a Windows Update are disabled. For all the changes that we just made to take effect, a reboot is required. After the login, there will be a black screen. This is caused by the privacy and performance script. so there is no reason to worry. This is a good time to choose a wallpaper. Let's now install our device drivers. Links for AMD, Intel and Nvidia drivers are linked in the video description below. As for the CPU chipset, simply run the installer. As for the GPU, if you are using an Nvidia graphics card, there is a tool called NVCleanstall that will remove most of the integrated spyware from Nvidia graphics drivers. If you don't have an Nvidia GPU, you can skip this part. For those of you who do have an Nvidia GPU, forget about GeForce Experience and forget about Nvidia Shadowplay. This software is absolutely garbage. It spies on you and collects your personal information, and it also needs system resources doing so. If you want to record videos, I recommend OBS Studio, which is what I am using right now. So let's get to the installation. At this point you will need both the Nvidia graphics driver for your specific GPU and NVCleanstall. Open NVCleanstall. Select Use drivers on disk. Click on Browse and navigate to where your Nvidia driver is located. Select it and click Next. In the Components menu, make sure Physics is enabled, then click Next. In the Tweaks menu, select Disable Installer Telemetry and Adversing. Perform a clean install. Show Expert Tweaks. Disable NVIDIA Telemetry. Disable NVIDIA Audio Timer. Enable Message Signal Interrupts. Set the interrupt priority to high. Disable HDCP. If you are playing games that use easy anti-cheat, which I don't recommend because just like Epic Games, this is Chinese spyware. However, if you do play any such games, enable the option Use Method Compatible with Easy Anti-Cheat. Once everything is configured, click Next. When the installer is finished building your driver, you can now save the modified driver by building a package or directly install it by using the Install option. After the installation has finished, don't forget to optimize the graphics driver settings in the Nvidia control panel. Also make sure your monitor is using its correct refresh rate. All that being said, even if we use NVCleanstall, there's still some spyware integrated to the Nvidia graphics driver, and this spyware will actually try to phone home to Nvidia. But don't worry, there is a way to block this, which I will explain later. After installing the device drivers, we will have to reboot once again. We are now going to install older Netframework versions while we are still offline. For that you need a copy from the Windows ISO file which you previously downloaded. Right-click on the ISO file and select Mount. Make sure to find out what the drive letter of your mounted ISO is. Once the ISO file is mounted, copy-paste the command from the video description and replace the letter X with the actual location of your mounted ISO. Now right-click on your desktop and create a new shortcut. Name it PowerShell.exe. Run PowerShell as administrator and paste the command. If we now reopen optional features again, the old Netframework versions have been activated. Now install Microsoft Visual Studio Redistributables. Once again, all files used in this video are linked in the video description below. After installing the redistributables, use the file Disable Visual Studio and Nvidia Telemetry. If you don't have an Nvidia GPU, you should still use this file to disable Visual Studio Telemetry. Microsoft Edge is evil spyware. Seriously, do not use this browser. It collects your complete search history and all websites you visit. It is just as bad as Google Chrome. Edge and Chrome are an absolute nightmare when it comes to privacy. You might have noticed that Microsoft Edge has just a blank symbol. If we try to open it, Windows says that the file could not be found. This is because Edge was deleted as a part of the privacy and performance script. Now you might ask, but how can we access the internet if we have no web browser? Well, that's why we are prepared and have our own browser ready to install. Librewolf is a modified version of Firefox with maximum privacy and security standards. It even has an ad blocker included, so if you watch, for example, YouTube, you will never see any ads. There are two versions of Librewolf, the standard version and the portable version. I highly recommend you download the portable version because the standard version has no automatic updates. Now let's get to the installation. You can extract the portable version anywhere you like. I prefer having it in Documents. There is no desktop shortcut, so we will have to create one. Now we are going to import our bookmarks. Right-click in the blank area right below the search bar. Select Manage Bookmarks. Click Import and Backup. Move your mouse over Restore and select Choose File. Navigate to wherever you have your bookmark file located. Now before we go online, we will use one more program. Instead of wasting your time by manually configuring Windows privacy settings, we will now use a tool named ChatUp10 which allows us to change multiple privacy settings at once. If you have never used this tool before, it might be worth reading all the settings. Generally, I recommend using the Actions option at the top, then select Apply All Settings. This will enable all privacy settings. Now use the search option to enable individual permissions that you might need. For example, if you are using a microphone, make sure microphone access is enabled. If you are using a webcam, also make sure that camera access is enabled. Most of you will also want to enable notification access. At the top left, clicking on File will provide you with an option to import and export all of your privacy settings. Once done configuring everything, close the program and confirm to reboot to apply the changes. Now we are finally prepared to go online. Immediately after connecting your computer to the internet, the first thing you want to do is installing Portmaster. Portmaster is a replacement for the Windows Firewall that lets you take back control over all your computer's network activity. Run the installer as administrator. When Portmaster finished installing, use the Windows Control Panel to open the Windows Firewall. Click on Turn the Windows Defender Firewall on or off. Now turn off the Windows Firewall. Confirm to reboot your computer. After the reboot, in the taskbar, click the small white arrow to open the Portmaster app. When you first open Portmaster, the program will prompt you for a quick setup. Trackers are blocked system-wide, so just click Next. Now click on Customize and select Quad 9 as DNS server. Quad 9 is one of the best DNS servers when it comes to performance and privacy. We have now finished the setup. Under Network Activity, you can monitor all of your computer's connections and block or allow them however you want. We will now create a desktop shortcut for the Portmaster. In the Task Manager, right-click on any Portmaster process and select Open File Location. Now click on Saving to open the main directory. Search for exe, then right-click on Portmaster app.exe. We can now use the shortcut to easily open Portmaster. As default network action, I highly recommend changing the setting to block, so if any program wants to access the internet, it will first need your permissions to do so. This is a very good protection against viruses and malware. Scrolling down a bit further, we can investigate Portmaster's filter list. By default, it blocks ads and trackers and even malware. Now to fully block Windows Update, click on System DNS Client, then select Settings. Scroll down to Outgoing Rules. Click Add Rule. Now add ctldl.windowsupdate.com and go.microsoft.com to the block list to prevent any connections to Windows Update. If you have an Nvidia graphics card, also add services.gfe.nvidia.com to the block list. GFE stands for GeForce Experience. Interestingly, even if you don't use GeForce Experience, your graphics card will still try to connect to this domain. so this should definitely be blocked. Under incoming rules, add the same domains to the block list. Now let's start up Librewolf. If we make a search request, this will result in an unable to connect error. That's because we still need to allow network access for Librewolf in Portmaster. Now if we refresh the page, we can finally access the internet. Librewolf by default uses DuckDuckGo search engine. However, DuckDuckGo recently had a lot of bad publicity for having secret tracking agreement with Microsoft, so the search engine can no longer be trusted. To add another search engine, click the 3 bars at the top right, then open Settings. Click on Search. Brave Search seems to be a good option when it comes to privacy. To edit, right-click in the search bar and select Add Brave Search. We can now choose our new default search engine. As I said earlier, uBlock Origin is already included into Librewolf, so you won't see any ads on YouTube or other websites. To actively show the extension, click on the add-ons option. Then right-click on uBlock Origin and select Pin to Toolbar. Now uBlock Origin will always be visible. Make sure to allow network access for the Librewolf updater in Portmaster, otherwise your browser won't get any updates. When you go online, everything you do is being tracked and logged by the websites you visit and your internet service provider, in many cases by your government. That's why no matter where you live or what you do online, you should always be keeping your internet activity private by using a VPN. ProtonVPN is free. In fact, ProtonVPN offers 3 free regions. Those are the Netherlands, Japan and the United States. So let's go ahead and install ProtonVPN. When installing ProtonVPN, uncheck WebView runtime as this is not required to use ProtonVPN. Make sure to allow network access for all Proton services that show up in Portmaster. Let's try to connect to any server. We are now connected to the Netherlands server via the UDP protocol. Now let's verify that the VPN is actually working. If we open Librewolf and visit ipleak.net, we can see that the website thinks that we are in fact connecting from the Netherlands. DNSLeakTest.com also shows the same results. I am now going to change the protocol from UDP to TCP to ensure that this is working as well. We are now connected to the Netherlands via the TCP protocol. Finally, let's test if the modern WireGuard protocol is functional as well. The connection has now been stuck for over a minute. What you do to resolve this issue is, in Portmaster, unblock other connections and make sure that the WireGuard service is unblocked as well. Ultimately, we will be able to use ProtonVPN via the WireGuard protocol. To everyone who made it this far, I just want to say, enjoy your new system.